There. Oh, it's way off. There we go. Yeah. All right, we're going to call to order the regular city council meeting for Sturgis, South Dakota today as March 16th, 2026. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. There we go. Jim, would you mind leading us in prayer to order the regular
essence
city
of our
council meeting
pastor
for Sturgis,
tonight,
South Dakota
let's
today
pray.
as March
Heavenly Father,
16th,
thank you for this group of
2026.
people that have
We
gathered
will start with the
to
Pledge
do
of Allegiance.
business regarding the city of Sturgis and its residents. Give us wisdom as we go through this agenda to be able to deal with this as you would ask us. Father, make this a special evening tonight in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right, item number, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion for the agenda?
Second.
All right, all those in favor of the motion? Yes?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no? All right, motion carries. Number 4, announcements and praise.
I'll start if I might.
Okay, please.
A member of Sturgis has really recently received a very nice honor at the recent South Dakota State Wrestling Tournament. Rod Bradley of Sturgis, who was a longtime resident here, was inducted into the Wrestling Hall of Fame. And I wish he was here tonight so we could give him credit. But congratulations, Rod Bradley. We're very proud of you. Thank you. And Tony, that's all I have.
Okay. Number 4, announcements and praise. Anybody on council have announcements of praise? Anybody in the public have any announcements of praise? Come on up. And today it looks like we have a full house, so if we could keep everything to 3 minutes, that would be awesome.
Tomorrow, the VFW Ladies Auxiliary is hosting corned beef and cabbage from 5:30 to 6:30. It's a suggested donation, so please come down.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone else? All righty, none being seen, we'll move to number 5, non-agenda matters that may become before the council. Anybody on council have anything? Anybody in the public? All righty, none being seen, we will move on to number 6, department updates.
Well, the first one is the sales tax update, January through February. Currently, for the first 2 months of the year, we're just a little bit ahead of where we were last year, right on target where we anticipated for the general sales tax. Last year at this point, we'd made $325,047, and year-to-date through February of 2026, we made $327,557, so about $2,500 more than we made last year. If you look at it over the last 6 years, that's the most that we've grossed in that time frame over the last 6 years. Looking at our triple B, our 1% sales tax for tourism, we are above about $1,500 above last year for the month of February. Last year we were a total year to date $45,422 as of 2026. So far through February at $46,195. So continues to be strong the first 2 months out of the gate. Pending your questions.
Any questions? Any questions from the public? How about 6-2? Are you gonna do that one for us too? Or Robin will? Okay.
So the revenues and expenditures compared to the budget for January are right on track. We should be at around 17% for January. So general fund revenues, right now, the revenues are right around 18.2%. Expenses are around 15.4%. Liquor fund revenues are around 11%. Expenses are around 12.45%, so we're below there. Water revenues are around 14.3%. Expenses are around 12.57%. Wastewater revenues are around 16.3%. Expenses are around 20.01%. Sanitation revenues are around 15.2%. Expenses are around 7.95%. Ambulance revenues are around 10.5%. Expenses are about 25.93%. So we're roughly in the ballpark where we should be about this time of year.
Okay.
Any questions? That's it
Okay.
for me.
No questions? All right. We'll move on to the mayor's report. 7-1, consideration to approve resolution 2026-13 to amend a resolution 2026-1, salaries and wages. And Carrie will do the report.
Good afternoon, Council. Carrie Belowski, Human Resources. I'll wait for you to get there, Robin. So essentially, this is a consideration to approve a resolution for a correction to a resolution. The resolution is 2026-13. The incorrect resolution was a resolution that you approved during the last city council meeting. That was 2026-12. Bryson Cool is one of our paramedics. His hourly wage was incorrectly approved during the last city council meeting. The incorrect amount was $31.69. The correct amount is $30.52. However, we need to make sure that we get that into the council minutes. He has not been incorrectly paid that $31.69. The error was discovered on March 3rd, 2026, when I was getting ready to send an email to him to let him know that his salary was approved by the council. An email was sent to him, his supervisor, to let him know that it was incorrectly approved. It was incorrect on the spreadsheet. I did have the Aaron take a look at it, but the city administrator did review this work to ensure that the 3052 is correct. Pending any questions that I may be able to answer.
Anybody have any questions for Carrie? With that, can I get a motion for resolution 2026-13?
Motion
Move to approve.
Second.
So I have Jim and Alex. All those approve, say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. All righty, thank you, Carrie, appreciate
you.
it. Number 8 is consider the consent agenda. We'll take 1, 2, and 3 all together unless somebody wants one of those 3 pulled. We have some minutes, we have an abatement and a veteran exemption. Anybody on council want to pull any of those? Anybody in the public? None being seen, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
First by Ruth, second by Nick. All those approve?
Yes.
All those opposed, no? All righty. Number 9, approval of the claims. Anybody have any questions? It's a big one, $872,483.44.
Yeah, the biggest chunk of that too was the insurance for SDPA that comes out this time every year. And that was around, I think, 74,000 or so.
Anybody else have any questions, concerns on council? Anybody in the public? None being seen, can I get a motion to approve the claims?
I'll move.
Second.
Got a first by Mark and a second by Alex. All those, motion to approve, say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. None being, all right, we'll move on to public hearings. Number 10. This is a public hearing for the Sturgis Municipal Hay Harvest Contract out at the airport. Resolution 2026-10.
Evening, Mr. President, members of the council. This is the date and time for the public hearing for the 2026 to 2030 Sturgis Municipal Hay Harvest Contract. At this time, staff would request that you open the public hearing and take any public comment.
Okay. At this time, we will open for the public hearing for comment. Any from council? Any from the public? Rick, do you have a quick report on this? Okay.
I think we need to close the public
Okay.
comment.
All right, we will close the public comment. Go ahead, Rick.
Okay, staff is asking for council to consider the award of the bid. On March 12, 2026 at 1 p.m., sealed bids were received and opened for the 2026-2030 hay harvest contract. This contract will run through December 31st of 2030. The contract does allow the successful bidder to retain the harvested forage crop while paying the city of Sturgis a lump sum annual cash payment, which is due each year by November 1st. The contract is awarded based on the highest total 5-year amount. We did receive 4 bids for this. The highest bidder was Nick Yurka with a total 5-year bid price of $32,790. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. Otherwise, we would recommend that the council authorize the mayor to award that contract and sign Resolution 2026-10 authorizing that amount.
Rick, may I ask, did we have several bidders or people interested?
We did. We had 4 different bidders that submitted bids.
Is this pretty much the same price we get every year?
For the most part, so that's a 5-year total, and like the bids that we received this year range from 27,600 on up to the 32,790. So there's about 160 acres plus or minus that they can hay out there. So each year they pay us, somewhere in the neighborhood of around $6,000, and then it's a 5-year contract.
It's their own equipment.
Yes, yep.
Any other questions for Rick?
Rick, I just was gonna ask you, what if there is no hay? What if we have a dry year? Then what happens?
That's how the bidding works. They pay regardless of whether they get 1 cutting or they get 5 cuttings. It's the same amount.
Thanks.
Any other questions, comments?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Those opposed? Alrighty, thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Number 11, reports. Number 1 is a citizen's request from Kaylee Schneider from Black Hills Council of Local Governments.
Hello.
Good
I'm
evening.
gonna start this as a sign-in sheet to pay for a grant, so I'm gonna start it and explain it. Name's Kaylee Snyder. I'm with the Black Hills Council of Local Governments. So the reason I'm here this evening is to let you know that we will be updating the Meade County Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan and Community Wildfire Protection Plan. This is a FEMA-approved document that's required to be updated every 5 years. So you currently have one. It will expire in November of this year. So it is the county's plan, but all of the cities joining in and eventually adopting it, it becomes your plan as well. by having this plan, it helps you to be prepared for natural hazards. So we're talking about flooding, wildfires, hail, wind, those types of things. It also allows you to be eligible for FEMA funding. So should there be an incident, by having that plan, you're able to apply for the federal grants in that. I think in the past you've had a couple of projects where you've utilized that. And in addition to that, we're also updating the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. So typically this is just a county plan, but we are now combining the two. And the reason behind this is that the Community Wildfire Protection Plan is not being updated regularly, and a lot of times it's out of date for certain funding. So by putting it together with the mitigation plan, this allows it to, one, part of the cost, but two, it is going to be regularly updated every 5 years along with the mitigation plan. As for the cost, it is a county plan. It is covered by a FEMA grant. The sign-in sheet that's going around is for in-kind. So it's a 75% grant, 25% in-kind. And by the end of it all, we should, be able to be reimbursed, and there should be no cost. And that's all in the county. So what the cities, they just need to participate, and that's your contribution. So any questions on that aspect of it? Okay. So in addition to that, as part of the participation, and you don't have to do this today, but I would request if you could select 2 people to serve as representatives for Sturgis. I usually encourage 1 elected official and 1 staff member. That way, because we're going to be coming and having you adopt it, elected officials are kept up, and it's sometimes easier to get in contact with a member of staff. That's why I request that. So again, if you have someone in mind, or if you want to decide that tonight, you can. Otherwise, I can reach out to Aaron and get that sorted. But other than that, so that sign-in sheet, feel free to put whatever information you feel comfortable. Anyone in the room is allowed to sign it, anyone that listens to my spiel. And that's all I have to say about that, unless there's any other questions on the mitigation aspect of it. Okay. Other than that, just a quick update from Black Hills Council. We've have you on our list for a comp plan update. There's been some discussion on that. I'm currently working on getting the scope of work to our director, Jennifer Sietsma, and we will send that over to the city to look at. Any questions? We're still kind of in the early phases of that, but I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Just refresh my memory. What am I signing here? Like, what's going to happen if I sign this?
So that information will be used to help show the in-kind to match the grant for the payment of the plan. So I don't remember the exact cost. I think it's like $30 a person or $29 a person, and I combine all of that at the end of this, and your time is used as payment for the match of the 25% of the cost of the plan. And again, you're free to put whatever you want, sign it's voluntary. Yes.
Any questions, comments?
I have to ask, if I might.
Yeah.
I guess I'd have to see the form, but are you trying to sell us on something?
No. So this, again, it's a FEMA grant that the county was awarded. It's reimbursable. So 75% of that is reimbursed. The remaining 25%, rather than paying in cash, is matched through in-kind. So the in-kind is volunteer time for anybody that is involved in the plan. So just today, by listening to me talk about the update, the representatives from Sturgis that will be involved, different things that we'll do throughout the process, the time that is used for that covers that remaining 25%, so the county doesn't have to pay it at the end. Does that make sense?
No. I think you obviously believe in it, but what are you asking? You're asking us, is this like cleaning up garbage off the roads or?
No. You just have to participate, and that includes listening about the update and the two representatives that will actually participate in the plan. So every time I go to a meeting, I have a sign-in sheet. I collect the number of people, the amount of time that was spent, mileage is included, and I calculate all of that, and it comes to a dollar value. And that dollar value is used as in-kind for the remaining cost of the plan.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe, just to make sure, maybe I can explain it the way that I understand it, is that by you being here and you spending the time explaining this to us and talking to us about it, those hours and that time counts towards the in-kind for,
The cost of
yes.
the plan.
So
Yes.
signing this counts as,
Did you sign it?
I did.
Okay.
Yes. Basically, you signing it allows that the county won't have to pay any money. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Uh, We'll get those representatives. We'll sit with Aaron
Okay.
and get those to you.
All right.
Okay.
And I'll wait for that to come around. And
All righty.
All right. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much for your time. Appreciate it. All right, 11.2, consider the mayor's proposed revised residential camping regulations. And I think Aaron's going to take this one.
Yeah, good evening, council. Yeah, obviously, we, after the rally last year, recognized that we have an ordinance that doesn't fit the needs of City of Sturgis when it comes down to residential camping. We started off kind of workshopping this based on some feedback that we got last fall from this meeting from some of the residents. Had the ordinance committee kind of workshop that and kind of came up with a process in terms of some criteria. We delivered that here about a month ago, and we've had some feedback from that meeting. We've had some feedback from this last meeting, and I know each of the individual counselors, elected officials have received some feedback, as well as some of the senior staff. So last meeting, the council asked for the mayor to kind of go back with the Legal and Finance Committee. We did do that. We did make adjustments to what some of those criterias are, and I'll go through those pretty briefly. Lance, if you would come up, for those folks that can't see it on the board, we have a handout that kind of gives it's a one-page front and back of the residential camping. So if you're interested in that handout, please raise your hand, and Lance will get you a copy of that. So just quick history, last year we had basically, you could have one camping unit, and anything above one camping unit required a permit. And this is based on what was initiated in the ordinance change back in 2021. The City of Sturgis at that time did not create a permit process, and so anybody that was over one was in violation of our current city ordinance, which is essentially everybody over the last couple of years. So that's why we went back and made some adjustments. So if you're looking at up on the screen, you can see what we kind of define as by right. You don't need a permit, and how many camping units and how many campers and how many days. So if you're talking outside of the rally, non-rally dates, we're looking at up to 3 camping units. A camping unit can be an RV, it can be a tent, or a combination, any type of thing that's going to be camping on your property. So that's what a camping unit is. So outside the rally, you can have up to 3 camping units, you can have 10 campers, and it can be up to 7 days without a permit. During the rally, it's the same thing, 3 camping units, up to 10 campers. Anything beyond 3 camping units or 10 campers would require a permit. Some of the things that we looked at was a setback. If you look at your particular ordinance, in terms of what your zoning is, you have different types of setbacks, depending on medium, high, or low. You have 5 foot on the sides or 8 foot on the sides, and you have difference on the front and the back. But for simplicity, we just use 5 foot setbacks on that property. So for those people that are going to have those camping units on their property, it would just be whatever their property put in, that would be the edge of those camping units. And so you would have a permit anything that would be over 3 camping units and 10 campers. that would be a free permit, and the intent is to make this as easy as possible. Eventually, we'll get this on Citizen Serve, and so we'll have to work with them to be able to get that on. But for this year, it may just be something where we provide an actual document, a report, something that would be sent to us either probably via email. Again, this is no cost. We're not trying to make money on this, just trying to make it as free and easy as possible. With that permit, the intent really is to get to yes. You know, we're not using initially we had constraints on a number of camping units that you could have. We had constraints on the percent of your property that you would be able to put camping units on. We eliminated those constraints. Essentially, it's going to be the physical aspects of your property will to kind of determine, what you can have, for a number of camping units and number of campers. The larger the lot you have, the larger lot that has available space for flat ground for camping, will determine kind of what that would look like. If we had a permit that came to us that has, for example, 20 campers, but there's only one restroom that's inside that's available, we would probably request an additional porta pot to be able to facilitate that. I'll be working with our team to determine what those criteria is. Right now, I don't know what that is in terms of how many restrooms that would require based on a number. So we would work back with the property owner, and again, the intent is to get the yes. So if they have something that has an issue with sanitation or public safety, we'll work with them to make the adjustments so they can get to have their residential camping. Again, there's no hard caps. Our biggest criteria is just maintaining public safety and health and welfare of the public and our guests. The other issue we had was vehicles. If you look at our current ordinance, right now it requires that all the camping, all camping on your residential camping on your property, people that come in with their RVs, with their trucks, their motorcycles, or their cars with their tents, all those vehicles are required to be on their property, not out in the street or in the right-of-way. What the adjustment we made is that passenger cars, motorcycles, they can be out on the street. What we have on this one, the constraint is the RVs and those trucks that pull those RVs to stay on the property. But everything else would be able to stay out on the street. Talked a little bit about the sanitation and the safety. Talked about the porta pots, suitable fire extinguishers, ensuring there's a sufficient portable water, safe access, movement on the site. Again, part of that is those setbacks to be able to ensure that type of safety. And then just a solid waste management. For example, if you have several amount of people on their property, you have, a residential lot has Rick, is that 90 cubic? How much are those, the size of those? 90 gallons. So, for example, my family, we fill up one of those 90 gallons pretty much within that week. And so if you have residential camping, based on the numbers that you have, we'll ask to be able to have more of those type of containers to be able to facilitate your solid waste for your family and also for who's ever residential camping on your property. So those are things that we'd be evaluating on that permit. Those that can host, if you own property in City of Sturgis, single resident, you can rent your property out for residential camping. If you're an owner, lives in duplex, triplex, or fourplex. If you're not a city, if you have property in town but don't live in town, you can still rent out your single family property that you have that you rent out to somebody, but just not the duplexes.
Aaron, that wasn't very clear. Say that again.
People that can rent their property, if you own property in City of Sturgis, you can rent out your property for residential camping. If you live in Sturgis, you can also rent out if you have a duplex or triplex or a fourplex. Is that more clear, Bonnie?
Okay, I thought the next statement contradicted it, but
No, it's if you have property in town but you don't live in Sturgis, then you can rent out your single-family dwelling. You just can't rent out any duplexes. You can also rent out if you have, there are some properties that have adjacent vacant lots right next to their own property, and you can rent that out also. If it's real close, we have an example where there might be an alleyway, and so you have this right-of-way between that divides your property where you live or that you rent out to somebody and this vacant lot right on the other side. So if it's in that same vicinity, you can also rent out that vacant lot. If it's a vacant lot that's away, long distance from your property, if you live in town, you can rent that out, and that will sunset in 5 years. In 2020-30, you'd be able to rent that property out to 2020-30. If you don't live in Sturgis, you can rent that out for open up more single property space, to camping, residential camping. But we recognize that right now we do have people that are using those single, and we wanted to provide that opportunity and some predictability as that would sunset over a couple years. Really, the intent would be is that this property that's not adjacent to your property, it's not close to your property, it might be across town, that at some point that vacant lot becomes available for other types of construction as we try to build out more houses based on the demand that we have right now and having limited supply. But again, we didn't really necessarily want to make a change right now. We wanted to be able to put some distance between now and then to allow people some predictability as they would vacant lots. So that's really it in a nutshell. Again, the big changes from a month ago is we increased the numbers by right. We've allowed multi-resident locations up to 4 plexes. We've included vacant lots. We didn't have vacant lots on the initial revised ordinance that came here 2 meetings before. So this seems like it's a pretty reasonable, it accommodates most people that are doing it right now, if not all people, and allows us, particularly with those vacant lots, to have some predictability on that into the future, and then also help with our housing stock at some point down the line.
Aaron, does this put further pressure on the police, or who do we have checking all of this?
Well, I don't think it, in fact, if anything, it probably takes some pressure off the police, because right now if we were responding to a complaint and we went out and checked residential camping, everybody would be in violation of our current ordinance. So in this case, we've expanded it. We have permit processes there. And so if they did have to respond and went out and checked, that they would be able to look at that information and kind of determine, if they were executing their residential camping according to their plan. Jody would tell you that during the rally, we are spread out thin. We don't bring on additional code enforcers. We bring in a lot to manage the rally as we try to provide public safety for our residents and also our guests. So we're not out looking for people in violation. It's basically just responding to complaints, or if there's something that's obvious where we see something that's probably out in left field when it comes down to staying consistent with what our policy is. But this at least give them some criteria that would allow them to be able to evaluate that.
Aaron, you want to quick cover the guest record side of this too, please?
Yeah, the guest record, the intent was never for the guest record to be collected by the city of Sturgis. This is all about more of a public safety and health perspective. Even the restaurants or the hotels right now in town, they have a manifest or how many people are at their location. If we did have a significant weather event or some kind of, even a man-made disaster, we want to be able to account for people. Again, we're not asking for it. We just ask that the owner of that property that's providing that residential camping that would maintain that list. To give you an example, you remember last year they had that camping along that stream down in Texas, and they had that flood, that kind of a flash flood that came through, and it washed campers and some of the folks away. Again, having a list of who they're trying to, to try to find and locate is a safety measure. So if we did have a large fire, if we did have a flood, or if we did have a tornado, or whatever the case may be, again, the probability of that happening is relatively low. But if it does happen, it can be pretty severe, and we just want to be able to account for people that are in our community. But again, not asking for that to be turned in whatsoever.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Aaron from council? How about
Tony,
from-
could I just ask, so this is just a public hearing, so to speak?
Yes.
No first reading?
No. Basically, we rolled this out for the changes for us to chew on, for the public to chew on, and if there was anything they'd like to see added or taken away, they can reach out to us or city staff. And then hopefully soon we can, I'm not gonna give a date, but we can do a first reading on this, so. So any comments or questions from? And if we can we try to keep it to 3 minutes tonight, please?
My name is Joy Manning Nichols, and I'm here restating, and I'm very appreciative that you guys have taken the time to allow us to, for all of us to get together and, really have a value to community engagement. That's very, very important, as you've seen throughout this process. Now that we're past some of the emotional stuff, I had the time to go back and sort of look at it word by word, and I still have some concerns. First of all, I would also want to say that we are happy to provide the permit. I don't necessarily agree with this idea of that. I really think there's sort of an overreach on personal rights here to be able to use your property how you see fit, as long as you're not, you're taking care of the welfare and all of this. So that being said, I guess I'll have to do a permit. My thing here is that we talk about on here the by right residential camping up to 7 calendar days per year. My question is, if we had a family reunion in June,
No, that 7 days outside the rally is specific to those dates. There's an additional 14 days available during that August timeframe. Probably that Monday before the rally till maybe the Monday after the rally timeframe.
okay, so I guess having
But you'd have a
said
total
that-
of 21 days. You could potentially max it up to 21 days.
Okay, that sounds good. Why did we choose 7 days instead of going, South Dakota codified law talks about that they are allowing for the occasional, and they call it, what is it, the occasional and casual people coming in, and they have up to 10 days? Why did we choose 7, please?
Well, we had 21 days total is what we looked at, for the year in 365. But then we started looking at it is that, if it wasn't for the Sturgis Rally, we probably wouldn't be looking at 21 days. We recognize that the Sturgis Rally is a unique event. And we have all those guests that come here that, more exceed than what we have for lodging to be able to provide for those people. And so we just kind of bifurcated those two. We looked at what the rally was. We figured 14 days would be probably needed during that rally. I know I've rented my house out maybe up to 11 days, but if you have people coming in early, maybe that Monday before, and maybe staying through and leaving that Monday 2 weeks later. So we just looked at that 14 days, allowing people to be able to have residential camping during that time frame. And then we just, 21 minus 14 is we had 7. And again, looking at other municipalities, that seemed to be pretty consistent for other municipalities that don't have an event like this. They're just looking at residential camping, generally speaking, in their communities year round.
Joy, just to be clear on, just so there isn't any confusion with that particular Department of Revenue regulation. So the casual and occasional renting, that is a state Department of Revenue regulation, and that only applies when you are holding out these open campsites to the public and accepting money. So the way that I saw you framing that question with regard to the by right, non-residential family and friends, it wouldn't matter if we had it at 10 days, 14 days, 20 days. That would not implicate the Department of Revenue because no revenue is coming in that would need to be taxed.
Okay, so there are some people here who do charge for this, though.
Yes, and the state law and the state regulations for the charging of camping, again, the Department of Revenue's regulations, not ours, is that if those sites are held out and rented for 10 days or more, then the state requires you to have a sales tax license.
Okay.
Not the city.
Okay. I'll take that under consideration. Thank you. All right. The other thing I wanted to talk about too is, and you visited about this, was that the guest record, don't we have data protection laws? And I don't know that any of us have the capability of keeping those records safe the way laws require, for encryption purposes and all of this as you're holding it. Would that not make a difference?
I wouldn't be able to speak to how owners were keeping that information if it was electronic. Certainly, there wouldn't be anything, again, we don't have ordinance text, but nothing's been proposed that would require someone to keep that online or to keep it electronically. The idea behind the rule is it is an analog behind the state laws, that there are state laws right now that every commercial campground, every hotel, motel, Airbnb needs to be able to identify who their guests are. And so as we were crafting this ordinance that was in line with the Department of Health's regulations as far as they have regulatory powers over campground, we said, well, the same rule would likely apply for the reasons that Aaron indicated. So it would only be kept by the owner in any form at all, such that if a unexpected need arose for it, the information of who was staying on that property would be available to the appropriate officials in the event of a law enforcement issue or a disaster issue.
Okay, I'm just concerned that I don't get on the other side of the law as well by keeping some of that private information. So I understand what the city's doing, but I also have to consider other laws as well. Okay. And then I just wanted to also really quickly talk a little bit about the safety and sanitation and stuff. Are we going to have availability? I need to say that we need to have fire extinguishers. Do we have certain types or anything that we're going to have to deal with? Or isn't water itself a fire extinguishing kind of thing? So
Well, we'll
how do we do
define-
this?
We'll continue to work on that. We're looking at that type of standards and what those requirements are. Right now, we were just looking at getting the permit process in place, just make sure that we hit the key points in terms of the criteria, the stuff that we've been talking about over the last month. But when it comes down to fire extinguishers, the sanitation for having porta pots, potable water, those type of requirements, I'll work with our Department of Director of Public Works and kind of determine what those standards are based on what the laws or the standards are, and then we'll include that within those permits. The intent here is just to make sure that if you have a group of people on your property, that you can maintain public safety and health for the group of number that's on your property.
Okay. Well, when we were talking about porta potties and stuff like that, we looked it up and said 30 to 40 people. With alcohol use, you have to have at least one per 30 to 40 people. We certainly don't have that downtown, so.
Yeah, and I think the standards are a little bit more stringent than 30 or 40, but I'll have to get that information, ma'am. I don't have that at the moment.
All right, thank you. And then, okay, I guess that's as far as I can go tonight, so I'm right up about my few minutes here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I got one behind you. Come on, up. No, you're fine.
I just have a quick question. Dina Hillman, I live here in town. Where it says vehicle placement, now I've got a question. I don't know if you thought of this or not. We rent out our rooms, but we stay home with our people. We don't have campers. If somebody wanted to, we could, but everybody's trailering. Our neighbors have people that rent their house. They bring a trailer, they unload their bikes, the trailer stays on the street. The guy across the street has a trailer of people. These motorcycle trailers, they gotta park on the street. They're huge. So maybe you could look at that and see, because there's no place to go to park these trailers. Everything is full. So they gotta park on the street where they're staying. So I don't know what kind of solution you can come
Sure.
up
So
with.
you're talking about non-residential camping, just people that are staying in residential homes,
They trailered
not,
their.
not camping.
Nope,
But they
not
trailer
camping.
all this equipment or these motorcycles and stuff to Sturgis and where they need to put those trailers. Okay, I don't think we've looked at that.
I mean, if it doesn't have anything to do with residential camping, there would already be our existing ordinances on the books that handle parking, and those would be enforced through the police department and I can't tell you exactly what the regulations are, either time between when that vehicle has to be moved, where it can be. But
Okay.
again, in your example, it isn't specific to residential camping, it's only specific to the parking issue in town generally during the rally.
Right. And
Correct.
we don't live directly in town, so, you know, everybody's been fine so far. So I was just wondering if that applied to when you're renting out your house and they bring a trailer full of bikes and unload the bikes and leave the trailer on the street.
This does not address that problem at this
Okay.
time. There are other ordinances on, and just to get to the issue with residential camping, everyone is aware that parking is a significant issue during the rally, especially downtown. And so the goal of requiring at least these trailers and larger vehicles to be parked off-site for camping purposes is to help alleviate some of that congestion, to clear up parking spaces. The justification being that if there is space available on the property for tents and RVs, then there would also be space on the available so that a vehicle could be parked off and not be troublesome to neighbors and people who rely on off-street parking.
Okay, cool. That's all I wanted to know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jody, what is the ordinance on trailers? Is it like 48 hours or?
Outside of the rally, trailers fall just like vehicles. They gotta be moved every 5 days when it's, I believe it's July 15th, August 15th. I can't remember, don't quote me on the exact date, but trailers and campers cannot be on the street longer than 24 hours. And immediately if they've been hooked up to any services.
Okay, thank you.
Come on up.
My name is Richard Osborne and a resident here in Sturgis about 6 years now. And we have people coming that stay at our house and people that come and stay in the yard. They have parked their trailers after they've emptied their bikes on the street. I've never had a complaint from any of the neighbors in our neighborhood. I wonder if when they look at this, is it possible that they look at an enclosed trailer thinking that somebody could sleep in it? Or the vans that come in, and we have one that comes, it's not ours, but they come in every year from Wyoming, and they've been sleeping in that camper for 6 years that we've lived here. And I don't know, I didn't know until recently that that isn't allowed.
Yeah, Chief Vanderwater, was that what you were just talking about? You're talking about non-camping trailers.
Correct.
Again, like we had last time, where they come in, drop their motorcycles off, and then they park on the street, so.
Yeah, we've had people that have converted part of their enclosed trailer into sleeping quarters for the rally. They'll load their bikes and then they'll have self-contained units inside that trailer. And I think that would fall under the same thing. One, you can't be parked on the street, but two, if they're camping, it's going to be a camping, just like a camping unit. So
Makes sense. So
but
if
they
you're
may
camping-
not be as visible, you know, as a camper, I would say.
But if you're sleeping in that trailer, then the expectation is that trailer is on that property.
Yes,
like an
it would be
RV
on the
or a
off
tent
the
or
street.
something.
It would
Yeah,
need
okay.
to be off the street, yes.
Regardless of the temporary residential camping ordinance regulations, camping in vehicles on city streets is not allowed, unrelated to this ordinance.
Okay. Okay.
Hi, Misty Myers. I guess I'm talking about the parking too, with trailers and stuff, because I rent out rooms in my house and a few tent spots. So if I rent out rooms in my house, and it doesn't matter if they park their trailers and truck on the street, but it does if they camp, that does make no sense to me.
Well,
I mean,
the gentleman before was saying that there were people actually staying in that trailer. And that
yeah,
that would
I
be
get
parked on
that.
the
That's
street.
not allowed. We've
Right.
never, I mean, I've always understood it that there's no camping on the street. But if somebody trailers their bikes up here with, on a trailer, and they usually park, beside my house, I've never had any complaints. In fact, Richard's my neighbor.
And Chief, what I heard Chief Vanderwater say is that based on our other ordinances within the town, that you can park it on the street, but you can't park it longer than 24 hours.
Well, it has to move every 24 hours.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
And, yeah, it has to be moved to a different spot. Yeah, we can do that. I mean, there's just, if I put, let's say there's 3 different vehicles that trailer up, if I put them in my yard's full.
Yep, understood.
Because one yard, well, I have 2 yards, one in back and one in front, but my front yard is for my dogs. I'm not gonna kick my dogs out of their yard.
Yeah,
And
and
the backyard is for camping. If I put trailers in my yard, there's no room,
And
so
we
I'm
haven't
done.
touched any of those other ordinances. All we touched right now is a residential ordinance
Yeah.
that for those people that if you're camping on those properties, that RV, that trailer, that pickup, I guess, would be parked on the lot. But the motorcycles or the cars
Yeah.
that are camping on that property could be parked out in the street.
So,
Misty, what you're talking about is is in a different ordinance, and right now, as Chief Vanderwater just explained it, that's what the standard is right now.
So
is
when
that
you say
can't stay there long.
trailers-
Go ahead.
when you say trailers, it's not trailers that are like motorcycle trailers?
When you're talking about motorcycle trailers that
Hauling
either have
motorcycles.
motorcycles in them or they're empty,
Yeah.
right? Is what Chief Vanderwater was saying is that they can be out on the street if they're not having somebody stay in them.
Yeah.
But they can only be in that location for 24 hours.
Because on here, where it says vehicles and trailers, it should really be,
Yeah, we have kind of a problem because the first time we presented 10 pages of ordinance text and it was a little dense for people to get through. And so what we tried to do was to illustrate this a lot simpler on an infographic, but of course we couldn't get in all those details. So the way that we're at least picturing this now, again, we're only trying to look at the issue with residential camping. So how the ordinance will eventually be drafted in the event that the council directs it to be drafted, it is going to be specific in some way that these are trailers and vehicles associated with residential
so you
camping.
could put camper trailer.
Yeah, so
So
I
it's not
understand.
the motorcycle trailers. They can be parked.
Again, the distinction
The
that we've
trucks
drawn
and, yeah.
now is these vehicles associated with camping activity. And so there would be a distinction, and I understand what you're saying of, if someone brings a trailer full of motorcycles because they're camping in tents on the front yard, then that vehicle would be a trailer associated with camping activity and should be parked on the yard. And what you're saying is when you rent out your house, someone may bring that same vehicle with all those trailers, and there is no such regulation. That is
Yeah.
correct. Because the only way that we're regulating this, at least at this point, is again, explaining to Joy, trying to use residential camping to mitigate some of those parking impacts that we aren't going to be able to mitigate any other way. So that's not something that's been
But-
addressed yet.
I don't think, I understand the RVs and the camper trailers and all that, but it's also a public street. And, somebody should be able to park their pickup on the street. And, if you're going by laws, you have to move it every 24 hours. It can't be there for days. Why are we putting I understand if they're breaking a parking law, ticket them. Do that, but we're putting such a strong thing on this parking, I understand that, but if somebody doesn't complain and they're not breaking the law, why are we putting it on that? I understand the camping trailers and the RVs, but I think that's going a little far.
Understand, and that's certainly something the council can take into consideration. Again, we know that regardless of residential camping, camping space downtown, lawful on-street parking is a premium, and it is the council's.
So can you do a radius around downtown for no trailer?
Potentially, that's
Parking?
something that can be looked at. There's a lot of moving pieces on this because, attacking one issue like residential camping doesn't necessarily solve the issue. And I hear what you're saying. These are lawful on-street on-street parking, that all these people that come up from neighboring communities and want to park in the downtown neighborhoods and walk downtown, that creates, that's associated with the rally, and it also creates a significant burden for the people who live there and who rely on on-site parking. And so, again, the purpose of the ordinance, even if not perfectly dialed in yet, is to have this separate beast of residential camping that is continuing to draw significant density down to these lower neighborhoods, not make a bad problem worse. So that's the needle that we're trying to thread, and I
I get
agree with
that.
you, it's not easy.
And I think that this is a lot closer than the other one was. This one is a lot better. But, and also, I mean, when this residential camping non-rally, is that even when somebody doesn't pay you?
Yes, so what we're trying to navigate here, again, is there's two different beasts, rally. So the question of what your rights are to camp on your property any other time other than the rally is an issue that every single community deals with, and it's usually in their zoning ordinance. And most communities do not allow things like, the family reunion that Ms. Nichols was talking about. I want to come up, I want to bring 8 RVs, put them on my lot, and have a family reunion for a week. Most communities have solved that problem by saying, if that's something you want to do, that's maybe not compatible with neighborhood living, and so you should go to a campground to do that. But what we're trying to recognize and again build consensus on is that is a culture in Sturgis where people are coming up, their families staying for maybe, a few days or for a week. Mom and dad have a camper, the kids have a tent. We want to allow that in a way that is incidental with property use. Oh, that's where it's coming from. Happens to me all the time.
I'm silent, I swear.
If the council did adopt this by right limitation on camping, Sturgis would probably have the most liberal residential camping rules of almost any Black Hills community by allowing that kind of activity. And so that's what the council's looking at is for low density residential living, is it an appropriate land use to have 10 campers come in for a family reunion to stay for a week? And so that's the distinction that we're trying to draw, this unique beast of highly commercialized residential camping versus just what's a normal incidental use of residential property.
And I get that, but then there's like the lady that called in, was it last week, that depends on her aunt and uncle to stay with her in an RV. There has to be something in there that we can come up with, like one camping unit that can be there for a longer period of time that makes it possible for this woman to have her caregiver.
It's an important issue, but it's properly in the zoning context. That's a zoning land regulation issue. What that woman was describing was not temporary residential camping. She was describing something else in a zoning context. And so that may be important to look at, but it wouldn't be, in my opinion, appropriate to look at for a residential camping ordinance that's focused on this unique beast of rally camping, because that's not what she was
So
describing.
she needs to go to a zoning.
We'd be happy to visit with her, and we have.
I'm glad. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, Paul Fosdick, resident here. Real quick, couple things I haven't noticed, or one thing I did notice is if a guy was renting a house year-round here, and does that limit him with camping? Or has that not been addressed?
No, I think you are, allowed. Yeah.
You're talking about a person who's renting a house.
Yes, year-round.
Can they rent out that property?
Yes.
If they have the permission of the owner, yes, they can.
Okay. The other thing that, I hear some of you guys talking about parking on the streets with the trailers, the empty trailers and stuff. I do, and I have in the past utilized the long-term parking across from the Sturgis campground over there, over by the creek. I think it's like $50 for 10 days. So
That's a good idea.
That is one thing that the city offers. You just go to the finance office. So
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Hello, City Council. My name is Daniel Granillo from Ward 2. And I first want to thank you for taking the time to revise this proposal. and for clearly listening to the feedback from the community. It's encouraging to see a framework that recognizes the importance of residential camping during the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally. That said, I just want to ask for clarification on just one small point. And you've answered a lot of my questions already. Thank you, Aaron. How detailed does the camping plan need to be, for example? Is it a simple sketch, or is it something more detailed required for the camping plan?
Well, whatever we end up implementing, we want to make it easy. Recognizing that not everybody has access to, digital images and those type of things. You can get on Google Earth and you can print out a picture of your property. We're just looking at, if we're looking at a said property, is that, depending on the size of it, here's where we're going to have camping tents, maybe on that map you draw, here's where the tents are, here's where the RVs are going to be located. If you have extra porta pots, here's where they're going to be located at. Key thing for us is just looking at from the parameter around the 5-foot offset. But again, we're still working through those details, Daniel, but the intent is, the guidance we got from the council is to try to make this as simple as it possibly can be. We're not, it may not be on a Kleenex, but it doesn't have to necessarily be, some kind of big, plotted paper.
Yeah.
So again, we'll work through that. I'm working with the team on that to be able to come up with something that would be easy to describe on and then provide that to us.
Yeah. Overall, I believe the revised proposal is it's a great direction and a great step forward. And my goal, and I think everyone's goal here, is just to ensure that the final ordinance is clear, it's fair and workable in real world conditions. And if possible, I would ask the council to provide a real world example of a property going through the process from application to approval, so we can better understand how it will function in practice.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's me again. Anyway, is there a square footage you guys can put on like the tents things, or, well, it really doesn't make much difference to me, being as we got, that 3 acres, but is
So
there?
is the question, what was the question again?
Do you guys have like a square footage for like a tent, so
No.
you got all?
No, there's all size of tents out there.
Yeah. But, for the simple fact of, it'd probably be, probably a better thing, how much square footage does one person take, and because my front yard is bigger than most backyards, but,
Well, like it,
and then,
that's a good example, or an idea that Daniel talked about, is having an example. And I would, I've been talking with some of my teammates on this and trying to determine, what's this look like in the actual application of it.
okay.
So you look at a particular diagram, you don't necessarily know what size of tents they are. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. We understand there's going to be some nuanced issues there, but it's just more looking at it from the big picture. Example, if you have a small lot, but you're trying to pack in 40 camping units and you have 80 people, well, that's probably not common sense and probably wouldn't see something like that anyway. But we probably need to work through some of those details on what that would look like. But at the end of the day, we're trying to figure out something that would be easy to put together, to submit either to us through an email, or later on it might go through Citizen Serve. A lot of the other permits that we use in town go through that particular program, and for the most part, people like to use it, but it's not always the most intuitive, and so you'd have points of contact to be able to call or continue just to send that email in. But some of that stuff, we'll probably learn more about that over that first year. We haven't done a permit with residential camping before, but just gotta work through it.
Okay, and another thing, you know, I do believe it's noise ordinance that, you know, you guys are trying to eliminate or parking issues. Don't we already have that stuff on the books, or?
We do. We have ordinances that address a lot of those things. Absolutely.
And, you know, I mean, we should just,
What's that?
should just apply the ordinances we
Yep,
got. So we
we'll
don't
continue
have
to
go
apply
through,
those just as the standards dictate right now.
You know, and well, the state, they've got a lot less restrictions, you know, I mean, they've got 17 or 19 people, if I do remember right.
I'm not sure
know,
on the.
And, you know, for, you know, because like the state fair, you know, that's a pretty good deal down there in Huron, you know, and I've seen them, you know, where they've been stacked up on top, just about on top of each other, you know, and parking out in the streets. So, I mean, that would probably be a deal, you know, I mean, a place to start, but better not do that one. Yeah. But, and you said that there's, right at the moment, you guys, there isn't an ordinance on how many people for a porta potty?
We haven't established what that criteria is for all those different standards. Not yet.
Okay. 'Cause, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I sure appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Anybody else in the public? Anybody from council? Oh, come on up, Bonnie.
Bonnie Albert, Sturgis. You have done a really fine job of jeez. I'm sorry, I changed chairs and the hamstring goes. You've done a really fine job of pulling this together and bringing in the elements that have come up in our public conversations. I just have a couple of points of clarification. When you say 7 calendar days per year, how does that apply during rally? Like, I don't necessarily have, they don't all come at the same time, they don't all leave at the same time. I just make sure I have my counts right on any given day. And they may not all come and go between the 10-day period. Some of them travel and arrive the day before rally starts or don't leave until the day after rally starts. How are you feeling about those time frames of camping and the designated week of rally?
Well, during the rally, on this handout, but what we talked about was during the rally, you have up to 14 days for rally type camping.
Okay, so, and I'm just not seeing it on here.
Nope, it's not on there.
But you have it in mind. And then you sort of clarified the issue of everything that I saw was owner occupied, and my question too was, I, as the owner, have allowed someone else to occupy in a rental capacity, and I don't have campers, or most of the time, they don't have a problem. If I want to host campers on the property that they're renting, they'd rather that than a rally move out or higher rent for the year. Is that an acceptable
It is.
use of the
Long as
property?
you own the property, and it's really up to you if you want to rent that property out. Again, I think Paul had the question, if somebody rents a property and they want to rent it out, they can also do that, but they'd have to go get the permission of the owner of that property that would allow them to do that.
Okay. And then I just want to say, I guess I understand the parking issue and I understand Misty's concern. And I do think what could and might grow out of this is some collaborations on the parking. Because we do have people in town who wouldn't mind making a buck, even if it's a small buck, but don't want to deal with people and the camping. There are people who I think would be willing to provide parking for empty bike trailers so that they're not on the street. And I think that we can be helpful in that regard in helping to facilitate that kind of collaboration. I think it could solve some of the inherent problems that just aren't solvable in one ordinance document.
Yeah, you could talk to your neighbor and ask them if they could park a trailer for a small amount. That would probably work. I think like Paul's idea also, we do have property that's city property down here by Bear Butte Creek that doesn't get filled up, and we do allow that for long-term parking. I think it's like $50 for that time frame. So there are some other opportunities to be able to address that issue.
Well, once you unload your bike, you don't really need your bike trailer right close at hand. So I'm just suggesting that we think creatively as property owners in town and people who participate and facilitate the rally itself, that we think of those things. Campers at my home. Now, this was another one. I didn't see that in here. At one point, we had the thing where you had to host campers consecutive years or you lost your opportunity. That's in the old ordinance.
Correct.
I have a group of campers who come to my home every other year. So every other year, I've got room for people's trailers. You know, it's that sort of thing. You've done a really fine job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the public? Anybody on council? Well, like we stated earlier, this is just a report and more of a discussion. And I guess we'll take these discussion points back, and I guess legal and finance can look at it, and the ordinance committee.
Council's got a few options on how and whether and when it wants to proceed. If the council wants to take no action tonight and pick it back up in 2 weeks to see if this generates any further discussion between council members or between council and their constituents, that's completely fine. If the council so what we don't have now that we had before was actual ordinance text. So we don't have anything yet that can advance towards first reading. And again, the requirement on this procedurally to adopt any kind of changes would be having ordinance text, doing a first reading of that ordinance, doing a second reading of that ordinance, and then that ordinance would go into effect after the 20-day referendum period. And the council doesn't have any limits in the kind of edits or modifications that it wants to make between readings. So if the council says we're more or less okay with this framework and we want to see some of the details that have been raised here today fleshed out in ordinance form, you can give me that direction and I'll prepare you ordinance text and we can put it on either as an introduction or as first reading, keeping in mind that the council always has the prerogative to advance or not to advance first reading depending on what it thinks when it sees the actual ordinance text.
Okay.
Well, based off of all the conversations and everything we've been having the last several weeks, I would like to see a draft ordinance based off of the conversations and based off of this framework that's been presented so that we have something tangible to look at and bring it to the next meeting. As a first reading, if it's agreeable to everybody.
I'd like to see us advance to the first reading if we could to get the process going. I think we're close.
So is that a motion and a second?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Good. You want to state your motion one more time?
I motion to have staff put together a draft ordinance based off of this framework presented tonight and the discussion that we've had tonight to bring to the next council meeting on whatever.
It'd be 6th of April.
6th
3
of
weeks from
April
now.
for potentially a first reading.
Okay. You okay with that one?
I'll second that.
Okay. All of those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no? All right. Fair enough. We'll move on to item number 11.3. Except for Jim, you have a quick,
I did not get one person recognized, and that's one thing we'd like to do if we could during this time when we have the early part of the meeting, but this person wasn't here when I first started. So I'd like to congratulate Rochelle Brook, who is a longtime part of this community and very busy in the community. She has been featured in the Black Hills Women's Magazine for Women's Month. Is that international, Rochelle, or is it National Women's Month? Okay. We'll say galactic. But Rochelle, we're very proud of you. Thank you very much. And I would say that the public in general, these are people that I know. When I was doing my radio program, people let me know this stuff. And I would say the same thing to you if you're on camera with us tonight or you're in the audience. If someone deserves some kind of credit, within reason, I'd sure like to know that, because we'd like to give them credit. So, Rochelle, thank you.
all right,
And
thank you,
Tony,
Jim.
thank you for the time.
Yep. All right, we will move on to item number 3, the memorandum of City of Sturgis Motorcycle Rally Sponsorship Program. Operator pathways under option 2. Eric?
Well, moving on from rally camping to rally sponsorship, I know that we've been talking about this a lot for the last couple weeks, and this is going to be an item of conversation moving forward throughout the summer, but the council's direction, I'll go all the way back to my initial engagement with the city. I came on board October 1st, and I knew, and you all knew, that one of the first things that we were going to be tackling was an examination and potential reworking of the rally sponsorship program. That is direction that came from Mayor Forrester. It's direction that came from this city council, both after this city council was seated and in response to the change in form of government election. We have a sponsorship model that is about a decade old, and it is premised on the idea that these sponsorship agreements are confidential documents to protect the proprietary and trade secrets of our sponsors in a highly competitive sponsor environment. And so there's, I know that I have been absolutely papering you with memos, and I apologize for that, but these are really complex decisions that require some background and analysis, and they aren't decisions that I'm making, they're decisions that you're making. And the direction that I have from you and from Mayor Forrester is to give you all the information necessary to make these decisions. So this almost 20-page memo that I prepared for you follows up another almost 15-page memo from 2 weeks ago. And again, just for the benefit of you all and for the public, we're tackling this in a series of decision bites, is what I'm calling them for the council. So at the last meeting, again, we're talking about this legal structural issue with the historic sponsorship program and how to fix that. So the council was presented with 2 options. One would be to have sponsorship agreements between the city and the sponsors be open public records, and the consequence of that would be, that's totally fine. The consequence of that is that we are going to need to redesign the sponsorship model, which is something that we can do and likely to result in at least a temporary, potentially a permanent decrease in revenue. Option 2 was to take this sponsorship and licensing function and outsource it to a non-governmental commercial third party who would manage the sales, contracting of these sponsor relationships on the city's behalf, pursuant to a contractual relationship that was defined by a master prime agreement, public-facing agreement with this entity. And again, the memo makes clear we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. This is a similar mechanism to what other public institutions in similarly situated positions as the city of Sturgis have done. Again, the idea would be this function of monetizing certain municipally owned assets for the benefit of the city's general fund to help pay for public health, public safety services during the rally, essential municipal services, both during and not during the rally. The revenue generated from this program uses to fund both rally services and services that citizens of Sturgis rely on year-round. So the gist of Again, this rather lengthy memorandum is going through 3 different sub-options that have been identified as legally viable pathways now that the council has chosen option 2 to outsource this program. And those 3 ways have been identified as the council could contract with a national specialized agency. There are large national specialized firms that engage in this kind of function. They go out, advertise, negotiate, market sponsors for events such as the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally. Option 2, sub-option 2B, would be to have a nonprofit corporation act as the operator of this. This nonprofit would have either a portion or all of its mission dedicated to the commercialization of this function on behalf of the city, and its mission would be to maximize, optimize the city's financial return from this asset that it has to make available to rally sponsors. Option 2C would be a local for-profit operator. Again, very similar to the idea of a national specialized agency that would conduct this function on behalf of the city, but it would be local for-profit instead of national for-profit. And again, the pros, cons, risks, threats, implementation implications of all these options are many, and they are wide, and they are varied, and I have tried to go into as much detail as I think is helpful in this memo. And so the request for tonight is not for the council to take any action, but to sit on the memo, to review it, to digest it, to understand the options that are available. I'm happy to visit with any of you individually. Happy to answer questions from members of the public and take whatever guidance I can take from you that will help the council make this decision. And I think, bottom line, it is not obvious to me. I don't think it's obvious to anyone on staff that's been looking at this issue, and I promise you, this has been one of the most significant things that I've worked on since I've joined the city. We knew this was coming. I told you this was something I was going to engage in if you engaged me to be your city attorney, and it's something that I've taken very seriously, put a lot of thought and analysis into, including before I join this position. And so I want to make sure that the options are clear. And as we've visited as a staff, including with our sponsorship director now, I don't think anyone thinks that there is an obvious right choice of these 3 options. There are pros and cons and risks and threats and considerations for all 3. But some of the things that we are looking for is a long-term relationship to give this operator the opportunity to understand what the function is, to build capacity, and there's of course going to have to be a significant handoff period. This has been handled by the city for approximately the last decade with a city staff member, and so we have relationships with our current and existing and past sponsors that are going to need to be managed. There's going to have to be an effective handoff, and there's going to be an effective transfer of knowledge. So again, depending on which sub-option the council decides to go with, the memo breaks down what the procurement options would be. Again, for both options 2A and 2C, that would probably be a request for proposals. There's lots of explanation in the memo of why sealed bidding wouldn't be appropriate for something like this, and why a request for proposals would be more appropriate. And again, in all of these procurement decisions, we are bound by South Dakota law in the ways that the legislature wants us to procure contracts such as this. So the mechanism of procurement is going to be different depending on what option the council chooses. And again, just going back to not being a clear, obvious choice, this is going to be what is in the council's best judgment. And I can tell you, the devil's in the details on these things. Any one of these options can be executed well, and any of these options can be executed poorly. And so what I am representing to you is that what I am taking on as my responsibility is to take whatever the council's choice is and to implement it as well as we possibly can, working through all the details. And again, by delivering you 20 and 30-page memos, my hope is that you will understand that staff has been thinking about this, that we're trying to convey all of that information to you to help you make a good decision so that we can ultimately have a good product. The Rally Sponsorship Program has been incredibly successful over the years as a way to, no other community has what we have with the rally, with the ability to take just the sheer number of people that come here for a motorcycle culture event, and this idea that these national brands want to put up their banners and they want to be our official sponsors and they want to give the city money that we can then use to reduce the tax burden on residents and fund public services. Lots of communities would absolutely kill for that opportunity. And so we want to be good stewards of those assets, and we want that process to be transparent so the public has a better understanding than it has in the past of what it is. And the three options that you have been given to consider for option 2 are all a massive improvement for the members of the citizens of Sturgis to understand what assets the city owns, what it is exchanging, and the amount of money that's coming in for the benefit of the city's general fund for that. So with that, I'm happy to answer any of your questions, either now or offline. I'm happy to answer questions from members of the public. And again, my only request that I put in my staff report is my job is going to be easier if any public comment or questions, again, I'm happy to engage with anyone on this. If it's focused on the memo and maybe portions of the memo that someone thinks I got wrong or that I overlooked something or that is just incorrect and changes the analysis, if we can identify any of those things, I'll certainly bring those back to you and update. But we are hoping that the council will be in a position to make a decision relatively quickly. We do need a bridge model for 2026 so that we can sign sponsors who are already on board and willing to continue these long-term and productive relationships. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Any questions from council?
Eric, you are changing my mind, and I didn't intend that. But I will say this, I think I'd leave out the part about taxes, because despite the money we may have brought in, our property tax continues to go up. And when I was sitting in the gallery and a former councilman raised his fist and said, this is going to be a great deal for the city of Sturgis, or for the residents of Sturgis. And I asked the question of the council at that time, what do you do for me as a resident of Sturgis with what you're making with this rally? And the answer was, we build soccer fields. And that's what they said. That was the mayor at that time, or the soon-to-be. And so I agree with you with most of these things, except that has still not necessarily, I think Aaron's come closest in my mind when he said the inconvenience that we have. This helps pay for some of that, but at some point we need to have something that the people sitting in the audience, or me as a citizen, can see that with all of these things we've done. In my mind, I think we lose our integrity by giving in to what the sponsors have demanded of proprietary rights, but I understand there's our argument for that, certainly. But I believe that we still have to find a way that, other than just, we're trying not to make this inconvenient for you. We have to find and everything's gone up. You know, we had to raise water. Rick told us one day we don't get as much for, it costs more to a gallon of water than it used to. And if Sturgis is going to have a successful, if we are the biggest and the best, it shouldn't cost more to continue to live here and put up with. And I shouldn't say put up with it. I like the rally. As a pro rodeo man, I wasn't sure I would like that, but I do. I enjoy the people that come here. I think we are very fortunate, and I just think that, as it stands, I probably wouldn't vote for this, but some of that is because of Ward 3. When I went door to door in Ward 3 several times when I was campaigning 2 years ago, many times I heard, we'd like to know more about, have an audit of the rally. We'd like to have more information about sponsors and what they bring in. What did it pay to change the name of our street? I don't think those are things that we shouldn't be asking, but I will say to those people that's listening, and I was looking in the audience to see if any of you were ones that had said that to me. I don't see people from Ward 3 necessarily, but I will say to you that the people that are making these decisions, I respect and trust. And so, even though I may not vote for that, I trust what you're doing is for the good of, and for the good of the city. And I just hope that what we're doing is somehow becomes a financial benefit for the city, for the residents. Right now, the city is important. I know that as a member of the council and looking over the budgets and the things we had to fill. I think it's important that we do what you are proposing. But that doesn't lower my utility costs. It doesn't lower my property taxes. Doesn't lower my insurance. And I consider my job here to be, even though I know that we are asked to help the city, we're voting for the city, we vote as a unit. I represent Ward 3, and I look at the people that I talk to in Ward 3 who are senior citizens who have limited income, and everything continues to go up. So anyway, I take off the part about lowering the taxes. I mean, that hasn't happened yet.
Well, fair.
Hopefully it will.
Fair enough. It may not be the best or even a comprehensive example. And of course, the amount that people pay in property taxes is very little to do with the city of Sturgis and very little to do with the amount that the council has the ability to set. But the fact of the matter is that the Rally Sponsorship Program does bring in a significant chunk of revenue into the general fund that funds the city of Sturgis municipal government year-round, not just during the rally. And if that money is not coming in, then if the council wants to continue to fund those services, it is going to have to raise revenue in some way or cut expenses to make up for that. So I am not in a position to explain or repent for any of the sins of previous administrations of how they may have handled the rally program. We can only fix the structural problem and move forward, but I can tell you that any revenue that would be coming into the general fund from the sponsorship program would be exclusively up to the council and its budgeting and appropriations authority to decide where that money goes and how it is spent.
Thank you. Well said. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pro Tem.
President. But like Eric said, this was pretty much just to roll it out for council and the citizens to digest, and we will be looking at this more and more. And this is an opportunity also for the public to reach out to all of us sitting up here and city staff on what they feel option 1, 2, or 3, or A, B, or C, let me rephrase that, would be best in their eyes. So, like I said, no action on this, really no discussion. It's just get it out in front of the people tonight.
The heavy lifting on staff's part is going to come after the council makes its 2A, 2B, 2C decision, and then the third decision bite is going to be approving those prime agreements, approving the procurement process. So that'll be what is coming next, the heavy lift of the work after the council makes that choice between sub options.
Marcia?
Good evening. I'm here to commend you. I know what it's like sitting up there, having to wonder what to do with sponsorship. I go way back to when the city decided that they wanted to bring in an outside entity and they wanted their own contract written. That was back in 1993. The mayor asked me to sit on that committee, and we spent several weeks going over that, both staff members and people from the community. So when that was awarded to Champion, that was my first look at what the sponsorship world is. That's when we started to learn about it. Now, I wasn't in a position to look at any contracts, but I started learning what it's all about. And the majority of the citizens here, and I'm sure some of you on the council, have no idea what this world is like. It's hard. And when I've watched things change over the years, and then I was on the chamber when the chamber still had the rights to the marks. And it was sponsorship again, and it was all of that. And so we had another entity that we had to work with. And then I was on the city council, and it was a different organization. And each time, it just furthered, as I talked to the sponsors over the years, they don't care. They don't have made public. And Sturgis is, like it said, its own unique. So no other cities, I believe, go through what we do in trying to decide what's best for our citizens. Now, when I sat on the council before, it was, we want this information, we need this information. Well, we gave them everything that we could, but we couldn't give them the details of the contracts. In fact, we on the council didn't know, because it was the partner that we had who was doing all of that. Now, I've always been an advocate for an outside source and a national source, only because those people have the Rolodex of all the big guys. They know how to get a hold of them, they know how to talk to them, they know how to make the deals. I'm not saying that that's in particular the way you should go. I think all three of these are great ideas, and I hope, you know, that at the end of the day, here's my other hat, Sturgis Rally Charities. I really would like to see something for Sturgis Rally Charities in whichever group you do, because that is something that you can say to the public. We've given away over $1 million to our local entities. Who else in Sturgis has done that? And we can show you line item by line item since 2005 how much we've given away. So right there, that's something that you can talk to any of those charities. And it's really tough for us right now with only $25,000 to give away. And we can't help them all. So I commend you for going this route. I think it's a great idea. And I look forward to seeing what you guys decide. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more from council? Come on up, Bonnie.
Bonnie Albert, Sturgis. I think this relates to, Eric, what you referred to as the procurement process. By that, do you mean how we choose who's going to do it?
Correct.
So I just, out of curiosity, if you go with the national or the local for-profit, is that a hiring process or is that a bid thing?
Well, neither, but it's closer to a bid thing. So state law has an entire chapter dedicated to the ways in which governments, including the city of Sturgis, are allowed to acquire property and to acquire services. So on things like, imagine a commodity that we're going to go out and buy road salt for all the road salt that we need for 2 years. It makes sense to go out to companies that provide road salt and have a request for sealed bids. The city needs X number of tons over this many years. Give us your best per ton price. That's basically a commodity. So that works well for the solicitation of sealed bids, very similar to what we saw with the hay lease today.
And for salt, because salt is salt,
It's a commodity.
whoever you get it from.
Yes.
Okay.
Having a firm or an entity that is going to engage in this highly complex commercialized relationship is not suitable for a high bid process or a low bid process. We wouldn't want to just say who can do this function the cheapest for us, because that may not serve our interests. And so state law recognizes that, and it authorizes us to put out something called a request for proposals. And what this document would be, if the council decides to go with either options 2A or 2C, it would be a very, very lengthy document. I'm imagining 20, 30, 40 pages with lots of different exhibits explaining exactly what this function the city is seeking is going to be. Putting that out in front of people and then saying, give us your best proposal. And so then it will allow the council to evaluate all sorts of different factors, including the size of the firm, the location of the firm, who their leadership is, what their staffing looks like, what their relationships are, what sponsors they might bring to the table, what successes and failures they've had in the past. Again, to be able to and even have interviews with some of these different companies. So that's what that would look like. I go into it, and I know it's too long, but there is a whole section of it dedicated to them in the memo about going through this process and the kind of things that the council would want to evaluate. Would probably put together a subcommittee to evaluate something like this. Not unfamiliar to us, the same process that we went through, for example, as the city council was looking to potentially outsource solid waste. Again, that's an RFP to companies that provide that service so that we can select the one, the council can select the one that serves its interests the best.
That's what I like about you, Eric, is you saw through to what my concern was, that we have to take bid based on promises, not track record, not anything that we can analyze. So
Don't need to do that.
And I don't know anything about what's out there as far as the state goes, but I was afraid that they might not have that consideration, and I didn't want to see us locked into just taking what comes.
No, very, very common arrangement used by governments, including the state, all the time.
Thank you for understanding and explaining it well.
Come on up, Paul.
Just real quick, statement-wise, maybe just an opinion. As part of a few sponsorship teams, I was with the Buffalo Chip sponsorship team, with Full Throttle sponsorship team. I also deal with some of the sponsorship contracts at the museum, being the board of directors president. The statement, I believe, is Eric made about potentially losing money with new faces and stuff is a real concern. So if I were in your shoes, maybe I would be looking at a national specialized agency. If you got to outsource this, that they already have these relationships with, because when I made the change from the chip to the throttle, all my sponsors came with me. So that's the way it works. You build these relationships for years and years. So you're going to want to choose somebody that has a relationship with these companies that you're already aligned with, so that you're not losing these. So just one man's opinion. So
Thank you. Any others in the public? None being seen, like we said, this is just a rollout of this. If you have any comments, concerns, questions, reach out to city staff or us up here. And we'll move on to item number 11.4. Consider to approve the first reading of the revised zoning for non-conforming structures to enable reconstruction permits for site dwellings.
I'm on a roll, so I'm going to kick this one off and introduce Jana Watson, who the council will, of course, recall engaging for planning and zoning consulting services, and while we have a vacancy in that position. Again, going back to, I'll go back to October 1st when I was getting my office set up and just got my phone figured out. One of the first phone calls I got was from a realtor here in town who was representing someone who was attempting to sell a home in an area that is zoned MH1 in Sturgis. which is a zoning district that allows as its primary principal uses mobile homes and manufactured homes and nothing else. And one of these individuals was attempting to sell a site-built home that existed on the property, and they had an issue. The sale fell through at closing because the federal loan program that the buyer was using for that did not like a provision in our code related to legal non-conforming uses. And I want to explain that just a little bit on a high level, on a zoning 101 level, because I think having an understanding of that is going to explain the issue and the fix that's been proposed. So I'm just going to talk specifically in regard to these two MH1 zoned areas that we have in Sturgis, but I also want to touch just broadly on zoning regulations more generally. So the best as we can tell, the city of Sturgis first applied a zoning ordinance on this property back in the mid-'80s. There was no zoning ordinance in place, and in the absence of a zoning ordinance, the town just developed as it developed in a, basic free market operation up until the 80s. There were mobile homes next to manufactured homes, next to site-built homes, sometimes commercial businesses next to residential homes, sometimes maybe even an industrial or semi-industrial use in these areas. So what zoning does, zoning is a land regulatory structure that is a grant to the city of Sturgis and all counties and municipalities if they want to exercise it by the state legislature. And what the state of South Dakota says is municipality like Sturgis, if you would like to regulate and divide up your city in a particular way that says, for planning purposes, for neighborhood compatibility issues, for density, for access to services, residential properties are going to be over here, and commercial properties are going to be over here, and industrial properties are going to be over here, because it mitigates potential conflicts between those land uses. So that's kind of zoning in a nutshell, what we call sometimes Euclidean zoning, because it comes from a case in, Illinois. Where? New York, Euclid, where this kind of regulation was first challenged in the courts. This was back in the 60s, 70s. Euclidean zoning, very common. So in this practice, so imagine the Sturgis City Council is back in the 80s and is faced with, let's take the area, one of the MH1 areas that has been a focus on this, that is, as it built out without any zoning regulations, about 50-50 site-built homes, manufactured homes, and mobile homes. So, there's been some positing, or at least speculation, that maybe the council back in '84 didn't know what it was doing. That's entirely possible. I don't have the ability to do that investigation or to reach that conclusion. The only thing we have the ability to do is to read the words they wrote, and the outcome of what this ordinance said is that this particular MH1 area, what is allowed to be there is mobile homes and manufactured homes. So what happens when the council goes in and zones an area only for mobile homes and manufactured homes when other properties that are not mobile homes and manufactured homes already exist there? Well, we have a law, a very well-recognized, well-grounded, firmly rooted legal concept called legal non-conforming. So what happens when you go in and zone these areas that prohibits a site-built house is you don't have to tear the site-built house down simply because it's not allowed anymore. That wouldn't be fair to the owners who built it with no regulations. And it also wouldn't be fair to the city. It would essentially say to the city council, you actually don't have the ability to regulate zoning because you functionally can't do it. So it works to balance these two interests: the landowner's interest in being able to use their property in the way they have in the past, and the council's interest and authority to regulate land uses moving forward. So hypothetically, what would happen in a situation like this is, say the council went in and zoned this area as mobile and manufactured homes only, and you have a site-built home there that now has legal non-conforming status. It's fine, it can stay there, you can live there, you can sell it, someone else can buy it. But if that house ever gets destroyed or abandoned and you want to rebuild something else there, then you have to build something that is conforming. So in my example, that would either be a mobile or a manufactured home. That hasn't historically been created a problem for very many people, because that kind of calamity, that kind of potential destruction of a house is something that can be insured against. So an example would be, I would go today, buy a legal non-conforming house in one of the MH1 zoning districts, and I would buy it, and I would move there, and I would live there, and I could sell it to someone if I wanted. But if it burned down on me, I would just take my insurance proceeds, because I've insured it, and I would go build somewhere else. That is what I would do. So this idea that there aren't, that having a legal non-conforming structure is highly unusual or highly undesirable, I just don't think that is consistent with the actual on-the-ground conditions. I mean, I wouldn't have any idea to know, but I suspect there are many, many legal non-conforming structures and buildings in the city of Sturgis and in almost every community everywhere. They are always going to exist anytime the council decides to exercise its legislative prerogative to regulate this kind of land use moving forward. So what happened in this instance, even though the city has done absolutely nothing in about 40 years. It hasn't taken any action to change any of its zoning ordinances. There have been changes in certain federal lending and appraisal practices that are flagging these issues of legal non-conforming homes, where certain government loans, most in practice, usually VA loans or first-time home buyer loans with these federal programs after the mortgage crisis in 2008, they do not want to underwrite, these insurers don't want to underwrite these homes if they can't legally be rebuilt for their own purposes. And so it has created real transactional friction for some of those owners who say, well, if my house burns down, I can't rebuild it. And my response is usually, that is how zoning works. If the council is going to have the authority to change land regulations moving forward, then there has to be a legal non-conforming provision in it. And what we have in this circumstance is a situation where you really do have a mixed-use neighborhood, something that was mixed use when the zoning regulation was applied, and something that is still mixed use today. So I know this is kind of old information that you've already had because you've already directed staff to move forward and to address this project in 2 phases. So the first phase is aimed at fixing this issue for those few buyers who are experiencing this transactional friction. So it will modify by creating a very narrow exception to the MH1 zoning area that says if one of these legal non-conforming structures is destroyed by over 50%, you can rebuild it in its as is, where is condition. Now this raises questions with the neighbors, with the people affected, and with the neighborhood who say, well, wouldn't it just be appropriate to have this area be site-built homes and mobile homes and manufactured homes? And the answer is it might be. That may be the direction that this council wants to go in with any of these neighborhoods. But what we need to do, again, since we're exercising authorities that are granted to us by the state legislature, is there are certain processes that we need to engage in. The council actually does not have limitless discretion to just go out and rezone properties. There's a very specific statutory process that the legislature requires us to follow, and for good reason. We're affecting people's property rights, and the system is designed to move slowly, have incredible amounts of public notice, and to require planning to prevent willy-nilly zoning decisions without any kind of planning function. Because this isn't just where do you think these particular residences would be a good fit in Sturgis. Is the density that's proposed by this kind of zoning regulation sufficient for ingress and egress into the neighborhood, for public improvements such as street, curb and gutter, sidewalks, parks, sewer capacity? Just changing the zoning to allow different uses than have historically been generated out there or used out there is going to have significant impacts on neighbors. And what might make some people happy may not make everyone happy. What we need to do is any kind of proposed changes need to be in line with our comprehensive plan. That is a legislative requirement for the city to even exercise zoning authority. So we look to our comprehensive plan, and we also have a planning and zoning commission that is required to review and analyze these issues before they come up. So I'm wasting a lot of time that could be given to Jana, who's the actual expert on this, but in fairness, I had the privilege of working with Jana for almost a decade, and she taught me most of what I know about planning and zoning, and we are kind of tag teaming this issue along with Aaron while we have this vacancy in the Office of Planning and Permitting. So with that, What we have right now is an ordinance. Jane is going to walk you through it. She's going to explain any of the details that I missed or got wrong. But the gist, the bottom line is the ordinance that you are going to review is going to solve this problem for owners, the initial problem that was brought to us about not being able to sell their homes. And then we're going to be prepared to tackle phase 2 and bring up new analysis through the required channels, through the Planning Commission, and eventually up to the City Council. Jana will be happy to answer any of your questions.
Excellent explanation. Thank you, Eric. And just so you're aware, the planning statutes, the enabling laws that allow for local government, county, city in South Dakota to adopt a zoning ordinance is very old. It's from the 1920s. So the New York case that Eric referenced when zoning was challenged at a United States constitutional level. And from that case, municipalities throughout the country then in their cities and counties then adopted their first zoning ordinance. So the roots of zoning is pretty old. Okay. What I'd like to do is just, it's getting late, just go through the high points of the ordinance. And Robin, if you can just kind of scroll with me here, I'd appreciate that. First up is we have to fix some definitions. Throughout the ordinance, the use of manufactured home and mobile home, it's interchanged here and there, so we're going to clean that up. We're going to also include some updates on a modular home, so keep on going, scrolling down, please. Modular home, that's building code, constructed home placed on site. Building footprint means the, oops, go up a little bit, please, thank you. Building footprint, basically the horizontal area, imaginary line around the outside of a building. Manufactured home, factory-built home built according to the HUD code, and this came into effect in around 1976, which parlays into the next one for the mobile home, factory-built dwelling built before 1976. Or otherwise not constructed to the HUD code. And remember, there's a lot of talk about tiny houses and that type of thing that would encompass this in this definition. Last is site-built dwelling. We figured we'll use that instead of stick-built, which is somewhat of a slang term, but site-built is built to the building code. Okay, scroll down, please. I'll stop there. Any questions on definitions? Okay, moving on. What we want to do is clean up the first chapter or the first section of 156-439 and just talking about anytime we have a structure damaged in less, not more than 50%, rebuild it where is, get your C of O issued within 18 months and you're good to go. As is whereas without any increase in nonconformity. And that's another thing. Some of the homes up there, they were built before setbacks even came in. So we have some not only just the non-conforming structure itself, but the setbacks are not currently up to code. Point B is this, what we're calling the narrow MH1 exception. So if you are damaged more than 50%, then it does allow for the rebuild. This is addressing the concern that was brought here in the last few months and discussed. Those homes to be rebuilt. So to be eligible on number 1, it'd have to be lawfully established to begin with. Okay, next one, point 2. As is whereas condition, building footprint, it will be in the pre-damaged location. Point 3, no increase in nonconformity, meaning if you have I believe in the MH1, the side setback is 10 feet and maybe the house is at 5 feet, you can't push it over another couple of feet. You have to stay within that same non-conforming setback as well. So that's the essence of number 3. Number 4 is just requirements for all permits, codes, etc., subject to all current city codes and regs. Other non-conformity provisions here, it just says that if there is anything else here that it is in conflict with, including provisions of abandonment, discontinuance, except the limited, it's necessary to effectuate the ordinance. Those are the things that we still want to make sure that they still are applied. The number 6, and again, because we're in the more than 50% destroyed condition here, it takes a little bit longer to get a house that has suffered substantial loss out of the ground than maybe one that has lesser damage. So giving those a year from the date of damage, and then C of O no later than 2 years from the date of the damage. Number 7, replacement cost, because we do refer to what is the replacement cost to get to the 50%. The owner may choose between a declared value on an insurance policy or a real estate appraisal, not more than 1 year before the date of the structure damage. So for example, a person buys a house in January of 2026, it gets an appraisal. Now it's October of 2026, they have a fire, they can use their appraisal because it probably is going to be higher than an actual replacement cost, because most insurance companies do not insure to the full market value, because they always figure you've got still things, a foundation that can be salvaged, et cetera. So that is the essence of the proposed changes on this ordinance, and I'm very happy to take your questions.
Just one additional thing, again, state law requirement, the Planning Commission did review this at its last meeting, did recommend approval. And then if the council decides to pass first ordinance of this reading, we'll have second reading on the agenda for April 6th. And then there's also a state law required public hearing at that time.
Any questions, comments from council?
I guess I would be interested in the people that brought this to us initially, and they must have been at the zoning meeting, is that correct?
Yes.
So it looks to me like what this does is provide that answer to what, as you said. I don't see any of them here.
Yes, in the back.
Oh, thank you.
I do have some questions.
Why don't you come on up?
Don Lee, Aviation, 305 8th Street. I live up here on the hill. Some of the things that you brought up, Eric, I don't know about the rest of you, but I've played SimCity a lot, and I know zoning in that game is meant for making a good city. You know, you don't want your industrial next to your residential. It makes it to where it grows and the entire city benefits. So I kind of get the concept of zoning. The last zoning committee that I went to last week, I really had issues with non-conforming. Again, trying to explain that to a prospective home buyer. That's difficult because they're not going to fully understand that. When we talk about a house being 50% destroyed, if your house is on fire and you got the fire department there putting water on it, I'm probably going to guarantee you your house is going to become 50% destroyed. There's no way around it, okay? One of the things that you brought up, you said with the insurance company, if your house is 50% destroyed, then you're just going to take the money and you can go somewhere else, okay? I contacted my insurance company because I wanted to know why I wasn't informed of this. I also contacted the title company. Why was I not informed of this information? The insurance company says, well, we don't look at that. And I said, yeah, but I'm paying on a $300,000 policy. Tell me where I'm going to buy a $300,000 manufactured home to replace this home with. This makes no sense to me. And they're like, well, we're not overcharging you. But in order to replace the home that's destroyed, I have to show receipts. So how do I do that by taking the money and going somewhere else? I don't understand that.
I can't speak to the requirements of the insurance company that you have. Going back to the issue of the fire, I understand what you're saying, although it does actually happen quite frequently that, you know, there could be a fire that's limited to a bedroom or to a kitchen that can be put out that isn't 50%. So there are a lot of circumstances where a home is destroyed and it's not 50%. That's usually picked as the idea of whether it's a complete loss or whether it's salvageable or not. But
no, get me. You guys are moving in the right direction. I appreciate what you guys are doing. believe me, because this opens up more doors for financial institutions. But again, it's still getting across to the prospective home buyer.
And this is a service that the city of Sturgis offers, and again, it's not the same as when you have, you know, a deed restriction or a covenant or an easement that is recorded on your property, then shows up in your Schedule B and your title commitment and your title insurance when you purchase that house. Anything that's recorded is, but zoning doesn't. But it happens very frequently when people are buying properties, buying businesses, buying houses. They'll come to us and they'll seek a zoning letter to say, you know, we're buying this property and we want to operate it as a convenience store. Are we in a zoning area that allows that? And we would answer that, issue that kind of, and that is where this issue would get flagged for someone who is important to.
Right.
But again, it's not necessarily important to everyone. I live in a legal non-conforming house and it suits me fine, even though and I now am aware that it's going to limit certain buyers of that home and except it won't, because this ordinance solves that problem, and I don't live in that area, but.
And again, you guys are moving in the right direction. I appreciate that. It's still a struggle.
Well, and like we said earlier, what was brought to us was the letter of rebuild. You know, now we're looking at the whole possibly rezoning them to, I don't know if we'd go to a multi or whatever, but that is what we're talking about in step 2, correct?
Yes.
So right now, what we're trying to address is what was brought to us about the 50% and having a letter
Right.
for these lending institutions. And sounds like in the near future, we will be working on step 2 to make it a multi. So what was the correct term? Stick built or
Site
built,
Right.
and everybody can be within that zoning together.
Right.
But like I said, right now, what was brought to us is what we're trying to.
Sure. And again, I appreciate that you guys are doing that. And I hope in the second phase of this, that if you look at the map, again, I've got residential all around me. It's just me, and there's 5 houses that are in that zone that are all site built, you know, that fall into the same category. So, you know, and I get that I don't want a convenience store right next to my house in a residential. I get that. So I understand the zoning aspect of it. I'm just asking to be done what's right. I bought this home as a stick built. I should be able to rebuild it as a stick built. You know, I shouldn't have restrictions. And this is addressing some of those now for financing. And again, later in August for phase 2 is hopefully going to be the final fix in this. So, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I just add another comment? When it comes to disclosures too, remember that zoning is a piece, it is one element of the built community. Every time a house is bought or sold, there may be non-complying building code issues, non-complying electrical issues, non-complying plumbing issues, floodplain. Floodplain changes once about every 10 years, it seems, you turn around. So to say that zoning is sort of a de facto clearance for everything that could be right or wrong with a property isn't, we have to be careful about how we couch that, because it is only a piece of property maintenance, or sorry, property ownership that makes it valuable or makes it less valuable. So there's a combination of other factors as well, so.
Any other questions, comments from council? Anything from the public?
Just one last thing, if it is the council's intention to approve first reading of this ordinance, I would just ask that the motion also includes setting second reading for April 6th, and that will give us the indication that we need to notice the public hearing then.
Okay. Well, if there is a motion, please add that into that, please.
Motion to move this to second reading on April 6th.
Second.
I got a first by Alex, a second by Jim. All those approve of the motion say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed say no. All right, none being heard. We'll move on to 11.5. Go ahead, Rick.
Evening, Mr. President, members of the council. Up for consideration tonight is to approve Resolution 2026-11, which enables us to participate in the bridge inspection program. The U.S. Federal Highway Administration does require initial inspection and reinspection at intervals not to exceed 2 years on all bridges. Currently, the city of Sturgis has 8 of those structures that qualify. If you remember back in 2023, City of Sturgis was able to apply for and receive a big preservation grant, which is a bridge improvement grant. We received $480,023, which was used for the rehabilitation of the Whitewood Service Road Bridge. It included rail improvements, epoxy chip and seal, rip wrap, and some TAMS coating. We only had to pay 20% of that total cost. And the reason that we were able to get that grant was because we participate in this inspection program. So there's a couple of different ways we can do it. We can go out and just hire a consultant. At our liking, if we do that, we pay 100%. If we sign the resolution and we choose one of the pre-selected consultants from the DOT list, then we're eligible for 80% federal funds and 20% city match. So that's really all we're doing. Once we do this, the consultant will come back and give you guys a report on the condition of our bridges. Generally speaking, we have really good bridges. They don't need a lot of work, but we still want to do this and participate in that program. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Any questions for Rick from council?
What does that fee look like generally? What does that fee look like generally?
It's about $5,000 is what our share is.
Any questions from,
And we do budget for it. It's a budgeted item.
any questions from the public? Do I have a motion?
I'd move to approve the resolution
Second.
26-111, I guess it is.
All right. All those approve the motion? Say
Yes.
Those that oppose, no? Awesome. Thank you very much. Moving on to 11-6. Rick, looks like you have this one too.
Yeah. So next up, we have use of city property for Harley-Davidson Rally Point on May 25th from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. for the Miles of Honor event. This is an event that Mia Richards started several years ago when she would run from the 22 miles from Spearfish to the Buffalo Chip, carrying a flag and wearing combat boots. She has decided to expand that honor this year, and this year it's going to be a 450-mile solo run across South Dakota. This run will begin May 1st, 2026 in Sioux Falls at the South Dakota Military Heritage Alliance, and it concludes in our very own downtown Sturgis at Harley-Davidson Rally Point. There's not a lot of an ask from the city other than the use of the Harley-Davidson Rally Point that will be on Memorial Day. Attendance is expected to be modest and primarily ceremonial in nature. They are going to have an actual program at 1 o'clock. And there may be some coordination with Jody and the police department to bring Mia in safely. I know she's working with the Veterans Club, the Post 33. They're going to help out too. So I think it's a good cause, and staff would recommend that the council authorize the use of that city property.
Any questions, comments, concerns for Rick from the council?
Move to approve. Second.
Okay. Any from the public? Yes, especially in boots, yeah. All right, well, I have a first by Nick, a second by Alex. All those to approve the motion, say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, say no. All righty, we will be moving on to 11-7. Rick, looks like you have this one too, please.
Next up is the consideration of the use of city property at the Fort Meade Recreation Area for the Youth Mountain Bike Series race to be held July 24th and 25th. As many of you remember, we used to have the Youth Mountain Bike Series, and all of the races were in Sturgis. They did go away, and the event organizers are asking for this one race to come back to Fort Meade. They have also asked that they be able to utilize that area and a couple of the electrical hookups there. Those would be the ones that the city had installed probably a decade ago when we had the National Sheepdog Trials out there, so that they could, for some of the contestants that were traveling long distances out of town, that they would be able to have some overnight camping there on Friday evening and then participate in the race on Saturday. I've talked with the organizers. We don't have any concerns. They're going to handle most of their trail marking and their cleanup. We'll have some sanitation facilities, some garbage receptacles out them, and again, it's pretty easy on our standpoint to manage that event. So staff would also recommend that the city and council approve this use of Fort Meade Recreation for the Youth Mountain Bike Series.
Any questions, comments, concerns for Rick? From council, from the public? For this?
I'll move.
Yes.
Although, anybody that says opposed, no? All righty, 11-8. This looks like it's for Rick too.
Yep, we're on a roll. So this is a consideration of use for city property at the Fort Meade Recreation Area for the Black Hills Endurance Ride. That particular event is held July 2nd through the 6th this year. This is an annual event that I think we've hosted it out at Berry Stadium for the last 4 or 5 years anyways. It was an event that used to take place out at the Fort Meade Horse Chapel riding area, and they outgrew that and they moved into Berry Stadium. Visiting with them and with the mayor and some of the other staff, it was the Berry Stadium area was kind of a tough one in the event that we would get any kind of weather. It was always tougher for us to get in there and haul garbage and really water. We had to rely on Fort Meade because the city doesn't have any water there. So we suggested that possibly we take a look at moving this over to what we would call the Buffalo Soldier Trailhead area, or that parking lot that's just to the south of the Fort Meade ball fields. And with it there, we have a lot more accommodations for them. Number one, we have a good road where we're not accessing through Fort Meade. We have a hard surfaced or a gravel surface parking lot, which is wouldn't be weather dependent. We have the bathrooms there. We visited with Rod. There's no use of the football or of the softball fields at that time, so we could let them use the restroom and the concession areas. They've also requested that they would be able to use the electrical hookups, and they were going to charge for those to their participants. However, they were going to donate that to the city to help off some of those costs. So with that, we also have the well there, so we can provide them water a lot easier, and it just makes our part of that event run a little bit smoother. And honestly, if you've never been out there for it, I was kind of surprised how many people it does draw to our area for that event. And I think Jen is here. Jen, do you have anything you want to come up and add, or?
Well, I just wondered if you guys knew what endurance running was, or if you had any questions of what we're talking about. Do you guys know about endurance riding? It's basically a horse marathon. You have 12 hours to compete or to complete a 50-mile ride, and you have 6 hours to do a 25-mile ride. And it is, on your mark, get set, go, and we award prizes for the top 10, but everybody gets a completion prize if you finish. If you're 1 minute over time, you're disqualified. If your horse has any kind of distress, there's veterinarians there. You have to be fit to continue. So you can ride the whole 50 miles and your horse doesn't drink water, you rode it too fast, its heart rate's too high, you're disqualified. So it's really about animal husbandry and taking care of your horse, and it's so much fun.
So it's not a race, it's going faster than the other guy.
It is a race. I mean, you do place, but the sport is so hard. the motto is to finish is to win. So as long as you finish, then you're one. And there, last year we had over 120 entries from like 17 states. It was really amazing. So
Yeah, we've not ever had any issues.
Well, thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead, Jim.
Sounds like something you'd like to be in at the end. Is
Yeah.
there, do you invite the public?
well, it's not really a spectator sport because we're traveling through the woods. We mark the trail with clothespins and ribbons.
But
But it-
where, you finish at the place where you
Yeah,
start?
we do. We have a finish line.
So there's a prospective time,
Yeah.
possibly?
Yeah, if you wanted to see the 25 milers finish, you would go, we start at 6:30, no, 7, so you'd go 6 hours after that. If you wanted to watch the 50 milers finish, you would go, well, some people do, my daughter's she started doing the sport when she was 6 years old, and she's 14 now. So she goes really fast. So if you wanted to see her finish the 50 miler, you would have to go when the 25 milers finish because she is blazing through there. But it is fun, and we do welcome anyone to come, and I do need volunteers. If you guys know anything about horses or want to learn about horses, we have volunteer opportunities, so it'd be great to see some people out there.
Questions, comments, concerns from the public?
Motion to approve.
Second?
First by Alex, second by Jim. All those in favor of the motion, say yes.
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 Those opposed, no? All righty. 11.9, this one's carries. This is the collective bargaining unit with the local 120 affiliated internal brotherhood Teamsters.
Good evening. This is the local bargaining agreement with the public safety. This is with the ambulance and the police department. We're calling it public safety because the ambulance has been now added to the police department. One of the reasons why this has taken so long to come before you, the council members, we did have to change everything in the CBA to reflect adding the ambulance to this. This is good for 2 years. The mayor did agree to add the cost of living for 2027. It will be between 1.5 and 3.0 cost of living for 2027. We did find out on March 9th that the union did agree to the CBA, and it has been sent signed. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions from council? Any questions from the public? None being heard. I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
First by Mark, second by Nick. All those approve the motion, say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, say no. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. 11.10, this one is Aaron and Chief, it looks like we have.
Yeah, if I need to dial a friend, I'll call Jody.
Okay.
This report, this is for an agreement with the Sturgis Volunteer Fire Department. You know, we've had a long history with the Sturgis Volunteer Fire Department providing fire protection services, emergency service for City Sturgis for a long, long time. We've had a 5-year contract that just ended the last year. We've been working on updating this agreement. This particular agreement is a 1-year contract, but it's automatically renewed for up to another 4 years for a total of 5 years. It gives us an opportunity both on their end or our end if we want to make any changes. You know, some of the things that we've talked about real quickly is at some point we'll hit a point of diminishing return where we may need more than a volunteer fire department. We may need some additional full-time type of manning when it comes down to initial response to be able to support a growing city like the city of Sturgis. We're not there right now, but you know, maybe within the next 5 years we hit that tipping point, and this contract allows us to sit back and work with them on what that would look like. I had several conversations with the board president, the vice president of that board, and also our police chief on that particular situation. But right now, what's in front of you is just the contract for for next year, renewable for another 4 years after that, and our recommendations to approve.
And it's already been signed by
It has.
their half. Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns from council? Any from the public? I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
I got a first by Mark, a second by Alex. All those in favor of the motion say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed say no. All righty, this takes us to item 12, executive session, and we do need a short one tonight. Is that right, Eric?
We do need a brief executive session to consult with legal counsel about proposed or pending litigation and contractual matters
Okay.
pursuant to SDCL 1-25-2 sub 3.
Is there gonna be any action?
No.
Okay,
Motion to go into executive session for legal.
Second.
all right. All those in favor to go into exec session say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. All righty, exec session.
We'll be downstairs here.
Well, nice job handling the technology.
So tonight, oops.
Sure. Okay. What do you want to get a picture with?
Looks like we're live still. Yeah, we're live.
We are out of exec session. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
I got a first by Ruth, a second by Nick. All those in favor of the motion?
Yes.
Opposed? Awesome. Thank you.